Hi, Prudence. Hi, Mabuch. I just want to make sure. Can you guys hear me? Is the sound decent? I'm not sounding funny before we actually get started. Don't disturb up and I'm in a meeting, okay? Hi everyone. Sorry about the delay. There were just some people were messaging and were saying, we'd like to get in. I've waited as long as I could, and I think it's only fair that for everybody who's here, we get started, and for everybody else, they can catch. Before we go any further, we I just need to make sure that you guys have actually signed up for your Azure accounts, or you have an Azure account that has got free credits on it. Or if you are in pay as you go, just be aware that you need to be mindful of selecting the free services that come standard with your Azure Services account. All right. Um, but that is just in a little bit. So what we're going to be focusing on today is app service, and app service is, in a sense, it is a hosting platform for your apps, right? And I know I'm using a technical term, but basically it's a house where, or it's a stand, a plot where you are going to then build your house being your either your uh, website, or it's going to be a web app, or it's also going to be a space where you can then deploy some of your mobile apps to as well. So this is a really cool tool to use if you are a developer. And the nice thing about app service is that it supports quite a lot of languages, right? What it does have is it's .NET, .NET Core, Node.js, Java, Python, or PHP. I think I've seen some other kind of frameworks as well, but those are the primary frameworks that you can then use. Now, frameworks are just basically um, tools that you can then use to build your website. All right, and those tools are based on a language. Now, the language is for .NET, it's a C sharp kind of language, but the language is actually .NET. And Node.js, the language is JavaScript. The framework is Node. Java is Java, and there's different kinds of frameworks that you also have in there. There is Python, which is a language, and then it has got two web frameworks, which will be Django and Flask. I think we're going to play around with Flask in this one because it's lightweight and it's quick. And then there's also PHP, which is a language and also a framework as well. But you also get frameworks within PHP. But that's, once you're a developer, you will pretty much know the frameworks that you prefer to work in and the frameworks that you're comfortable in as well, right? So now I'd like us to also know that, as I said, we're going to be using the provided frameworks, um, which will be for .NET Core, it will be .NET Core 5. All right. So here we go. Let's just get into it. So I'm going to try and do something. I don't think I've ever done it before, but I'm going to try. In this 2 hour session, we're going to try and cover 4 websites, 4 frameworks, and we'll see how far we get. And for some of you, you might just need to um, install an IDE, Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. Those are my preferred IDEs, but there's different others. It just depends on which one you use for your own development. So if you prefer Sublime Text, go right ahead. If you prefer uh, any of the ones from JetBrains, cool for you. Just use something that you are comfortable with. All right. So let's get started. And all right, so I've signed into my account on Azure and I'm on my homepage, right? And as you can see, I just literally created a couple of resources not too long ago. I created them and deleted them just to make sure that I could actually do that firstly. Um, and so let's get started with the first one, all right? So what we're working with is app service. Usually you'll see it here, and then you will either go to view if you've already got some services or resource already there, all right? In this instance, I deleted those services, so it's a clean framework. This is pretty much what you will also be seeing when you go into app service, right? And the first thing you're going to do is create app service. It takes a little bit of time, but it's going to then process and allow you to actually go into app service and see what it is that you're working in, right? And that is also a very important feature, knowing what you're working in, because sometimes guys, it can get tricky. It can get very tricky if you're not aware. All right. Um, so here we go. It's now in this page where it's the basics, right? And now I am going to now try and create my first service. First thing is the subscription that I'm on. If you've got multiple subscriptions, you'll be able to then select the subscription that you want to work in. I've only got this one subscription running at the moment, and I'm going to now have to create a resource group because some of these other ones, oh, actually, I can then select mentor challenge, but let's work as though we've never created one before, right? Now, this is a very important section. Your resource group, you can create it. In this instance, let's go mentor challenges. All right. And there we go. Oh, geez. Okay, challenge is, sorry about that. So there's my resource group, right? Next thing, the name of my app. Now, I'm not going to be using a custom domain. I'm going to be using just the standard domain that comes along. And what that means is that the website address is going to have .azurewebsites.net. So let's name this first one uh, task 1, all right? And there we go. Okay, so the thing is task 1 is not available because somebody somewhere has possibly used this somewhere. So let's try and make it delay SP. Okay, there we go. So now this is unique in all of Azure. And the other thing is a lot of these things you need to make them completely unique in all of Azure, right? So it can't be that it's only going to be just me. I am by myself and nobody else. It needs to be completely unique in the entire Azure environment, which is always a little bit tricky, but yeah, that's one of the things about using a public cloud. It There needs to be a way of identifying you and your resource by yourself in the entire public cloud. So that's where it gets tricky. But once you've figured out a name. You then decide, okay, how do I want to publish it? I want to publish it as code. You can use a Docker container, but then that requires a little bit more work in terms of how you want to do it. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to go with code, and I need to select a runtime stack. Now, a runtime stack is the kind of environment that I want to deploy, right? And the kind of environment that I would like to deploy is, for this one, .NET 5, which is .NET Core 5 or .NET 5. And that's the first one that we're going to try and deploy, right? So it automatically selects that I'm going to be running it in Windows. I can choose to run it in Linux, but let's just run it in Windows for now, right? Cool, great. So that's that. Now the next section is the region where this resource is going to be stored, right? Now I'm going to try and keep it local, and I'm going to try and find South Africa North because that's where we are. There is another region, South Africa West, I think. But for app service, there's South Africa North, which is the region which has this service at the moment. So South Africa North, and now I want to select the kind of Windows plan that I'll be using, right? As you can see over here, it's selected Mentor Challenge F1. I can select something else, all right? Um, and that will be if I then create a new resource. Usually with you guys, you will have nothing. It will be blank over there, so you will have to name it. So you'll select a name. This one does not have to be completely unique, I think. Let me just see. There you go. So it's able to take it. It doesn't have to be completely unique, I think. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so it can then actually take it. So you will then create that one. In fact, let's just create new. The reason why is there's something mentor challenges. Then after you've created your new instance, it will automatically go into standard S1. This is not a free service. This actually carries a charge. So you would need to go to change size. Now, this is important because you're basically speccing out the kind of computer that is going to host your Azure website. All right. Now, there's different kinds of services. You literally can pick whichever one. Just be aware, Azure S1 carries a charge of 1,338 rands and 9 cents a month estimate, right? Depending on how you also add some of the other things as well. If you want, and the other thing is, of course, it also carries a certain size in terms of memory, in terms of total ACU. These are all features that you would have to think about very, very carefully when you are setting up your Azure environment in a corporate environment, because you would need to think about what it is that you are going to be doing in there, right? So for the purposes of this one, I'm just going to be going for 1 gig memory, 60 minutes per day compute, which is free. Great. Let me try that one. All right. And I apply. Great. So now there is that particular service set up. All right. So now I'm going to go into the deployment. I want to see some of the things that are enabled automatically. Now, depending on how you are working in your work environment, you would then have either the resources being saved into a work GitHub repo, right? Where the developers are like, yeah, no, we're all going to be developing, and we've got version control so that if somebody deletes something, we've got at least the last working one. If somebody makes some changes, we can always identify who's made the changes, and if these changes are accepted, they are then pushed. So that is Git. In this instance, I'm literally just going to be creating the site once off. I'm not going to do that many other changes. So I don't necessarily need continuous deployment because I won't be making continuous changes outside of this environment, right? So I'm going to disable that one for now. And then I'm going to go into monitoring. So this is where I then monitor the services that are going to be active um, on my app, right? And it basically allows me to view the health of the app. It allows me to view if there's any associated costs. If it was something that I was going to add costs to, this is where they would show up. If it was something that I would require some insights about, this is where they're going to show up in terms of um, there's network strain on my app. There's a lot of downloads. I might just need to scale up, scale down. Unfortunately, with the free service, you can't necessarily scale up. All right, it's limited by virtue of the fact that it is free. But if you are in a work environment, certain websites are a little bit more business critical. So if it is, for instance, a shopping website, you can't now say, "Hey, we're going to put it on the free service," because ultimately, when there's a lot of people transacting at the same time, it might just become extraordinarily slow, and that is not, you know, something that you can then say, "Ah, but Microsoft, you said 99% availability." They're like, "Yes, we did give you that as part of our service level agreements, but you are on a service, which basically means that this one becomes slow. Some certain things will then fall away. So just be aware of that. Okay. Um, in this one, I don't necessarily want any application insights, so no, I'm just gonna turn that off for now. Your tags, this is when you want to figure out which resource is working with which. So this is where you would then tag it. The name and the value would be the value that you associate with that particular name that you've given it. Um, so you can then also do it for billing purposes as well. Um, so if, for instance, you've got the marketing department who've got their own website, and then you've got, yeah, I don't know, the finance department, they've got their own website. You basically be able to associate, oh, this one is this one, this one is this one, this one is this one, and you would know which resource goes with what, right? So for now, I'm going to ignore that one as well. And then I get to, sorry about that. I think we kind of lost each other on YouTube, but all that you missed out on is the deployment going in progress. Now, this is a very important step. This is where Azure in the background is getting everything ready. I don't have to do too much in terms of deploying, right? So it's doing the things, and once it is done, it would then give me a notification in here, and there you go. Deployment is complete. So now I can then go to resource. Now going to resource is going to that thing we've just created, this computer that is housing this house, and there's the details of everything. Now, there are a lot of features over here that you can play around with. There is documentation as well, which actually shows you how to go about, using some of this. So you can go to the quick start, deployment slots. If you go to the quick start, this is where you would then get some insight as to, okay, how do I deploy my website? So you can follow the quick start guide. The documentation is pretty detailed, but it doesn't necessarily give you just a simple website, right? Um, well, it actually gives you a simple website, but it doesn't give you any further details about how to actually change and do all of those other things in there, right? So we're going to go through some of these in a little bit of detail. But for ASP.NET, right now, we're just literally wanting to get a site. So let's actually see the site and see what has been created so far. So it's just taking a little bit of time to process, but in this instance, it's going to go through, and this is what the website looks like right now, right? And there you go, Andile ASP, AzureWebsites.net, and you can actually see, oh, all right, so that's what the website looks like, right? And essentially, what it's allowing me to do, it's allowing me to then say, great, I now have this thing. How can I actually change it? And this is where you're going to go back into here and be like, all right, so I've got the thing. How do I change it? Where do I change it? What do I do to make my site, you know, look like something, right? And also, if I want to change this thing, what things can I change it to? And so this is now where you're now going to go into um, the actual resource, right? And over here, I just want to find console. There we go. So I then go into console, and in console, that is where I'll then be able to then make some changes, all right, to the actual app, and be able to kind of, make it look different to what everything else is, right? Just be aware, guys. Like I said, there is a lot of tools. Um, so you can use console. In this instance, actually, let's just use preview because I want to stay within Azure for this one. So let's go into App Service Editor. Now, what App Service Editor is, it is in preview, so that means it might not always work 100%, but it's working well enough for you to then test it and then give Microsoft feedback as to, hey, this thing is not working great, or this there's a problem over here. But let's now go into the app service preview and be like, all right, I want to see how it looks, or I want to see how to get to change certain things. All right. Takes a little bit of time, and I think it might just also be my connection. I've got a lot of things running. But essentially, at this point, this is now where I'm going to start changing this website. I'm going to start changing. Now, in addition to that, in fact, sorry, let me see if I can, there we go. Now, I want to change some things about this. I really want to change some things about the website. These are some quick starts to help you get familiar with App Service Editor. Some of you who might know Visual Studio Code will think it looks very similar, and it almost does, all right? And in this instance, I'm just going to edit the HTML, right, which is the look of this thing. So, all right, I've got the HTML over here, and there's a lot of code over here. I don't quite necessarily know what it is, but let me do this. I want to change this over here. Okay, let me also, while I actually make changes, what I'm changing right now is the title of the page. So let's see if I can actually show you. All right, so in the title of the page over here, it's saying Microsoft Azure App Service Welcome. All right. If anybody's going to my website, that's literally what they're going to see. I don't want them to see that, so maybe let's change it to mentor app. All right. And the nice thing about working in a cloud environment, it automatically saves, so I don't have to hit Control S. And let's see if it has made that change. Oh, let's firstly refresh that. Hey, there you go. First change is done. All right, so that is the title that would be associated. You would see it pretty much in a lot of websites where you have that little feature. Most of your site viewers will then allow you to then make that change. So that's the first change that I've made. Great. So I know that that's the title. Now I want to change some other things as well. So, hey, app service developers, how about we change that to this is some text that you can change. All right. So there we go. We're going to change that. It's saved. In addition to that, I'm going to change one other thing. Take the next step to deploy your code. And this one, let's make it, we'll change this button later. All right. And your app service is running. And guys, the reason I'm knowing where to change is because what's really cool is that it's actually kind of highlighted what certain things are. So this is HTML. It's pretty important. It's in red because it seems like a lot of other things are in red. Essentially, the things that are in red are your CSS attributes that you can then change, right? So div class row, you would change it in your CSS, but you won't change it here. So you would need to also be able to then get to the CSS and be able to be making those kind of changes. But what I want to change is the stuff that's in black, which is the stuff that you will see. The stuff that's in red and blue and maroon, you will not see. Right? These are the names of certain things that function or make the website function. Right? So this is some text that you can change. Your app service is running. Nope. Oh, let's keep that one. And can change things. All right, cool. So there you go. It's saved. Let's now go back to the website and refresh. So I'm just going to hit F5. Hey, there we go. So I've made some changes on the fly that I can then run with. All right. And this is just some front end that I've made changes. I haven't really done any coding at all yet. All right. So this is just so that you're able to then see how you can then change some things if you're then deploying an ASP.NET website. So we're going to deploy a different one in a moment, but before we do, I'd like to find out if we have any questions about what has been done so far. No questions? None whatsoever. Okay. I think that means we're all on the same page and we're comfortable. So what we're now going to do is I'm going to copy paste something which is going to be what the initial challenge was about. So it's about let's copy paste something from a website and make it look completely different. I think that was the initial challenge that we had. So let's first see if we can copy paste. So I'm going to go into documents and where is it at? All right, cool. So because I've got a lot of things that I use to actually make some of the changes that I do in terms of development, I'm literally just not even going to lie to you. I'm copy pasting this entire thing. So we go copy, paste, copy first, and we go back to hosting, right? And paste. Hopefully this does not mess everything up completely. It might just, I'm just throwing it out there that it might not work and it might also work. So let's see if it actually does. And we refresh Let's see how it goes. Hey, okay, so there's no CSS in this one because the CSS is not loaded, but we kind of changed everything that it was there, right? But now, I don't necessarily like how it looks, and at the same time, my style sheet is referencing something that does not exist somewhere. It's not stored in some magical place. Some of these other ones I'm calling from wherever, but I'm not calling them from a particular place. That's why it just doesn't look like anything, right? So this is why it's important to kind of know what you're going to be working with, linking something to something. At the moment, I can't link something to anything because I didn't really create anything beyond that, right? So all I could really do was just change the HTML, the front side of this entire app, which is great in terms of changing small and things, but I'm not changing everything. Does that make sense? So that is what you're going to be doing in terms of the rest of the challenge. You're going to be trying to figure out how to call certain things and then make the changes that you want to call in. Um, but before we do that, let's maybe do this. I maybe don't want to copy absolutely everything. Let me just copy some of the things. Let me just copy just some of the things. So from the head, maybe let me just copy things from the head all the way down to booty. Okay, so we go from head to booty. In fact, yeah, okay, we'll go from head to booty because head, header. All right, let's copy and paste that. And because I said I'm copying from head, it might be in my best interest to look for the head. Where is head in this instance? There we go. And we find head, and we want to go all the way to body, which might not be such a great idea, but we'll see. All right, so there you go. I've changed everything. It was still, yeah, it was still a dirty copy paste. So let's now try and refresh. Unfortunately, the CSS that I've gotten doesn't quite marry up, but it's kind of there somewhat. So you can see a little bit of what's happening. So not too bad. And over here, it looks like there should be a picture, another picture, another picture, another picture. I'm going to now need to go in and actually change all of these things. Now, what's really cool is that you can change these things from just calling them. So if you look over here, this is how you would then get a website URL, right? So that's HTTPS code query. This is an actual website URL. If you were to take that, it would lead you to a website where that particular thing exists. So how about we just add some images where we see there is something called IMG. Here's an IMG, and this is where the image would be. So I'm going to go on the web and I'm going to try and find an image. Let's find an image for ourselves. Okay, so let's see. An image, free stock image. All right, free stock images, free stock photos. Great. So we're now going to use some free images that we can then just get. And what we're going to try and do is copy image link. All right, and I'm going to go back here and source. That's, oh, SRC stands for source. Sorry guys, I just need to also throw that out there. So SRC stands for source, and there we go. Let's see if this image is processing. And we hit F5. Hey, there we go. So we've got our first image, right? And you literally would have to do this for pretty much everything. So we now know that we can just get a free stock image and throw it in wherever we see image, and SRC, which means source, where it's finding that image from. And there we go. Bob's your uncle. We've got an image showing up on our website. But now there's other things that I would like to add. And I'd really like this thing to not look this bad. So how about we do this? Because as you can see, it's moving, but it doesn't move that well. It moves quite badly, actually. So how about we actually change how we actually see how this thing moves? Yeah. And I'm going to need to go all the way up to the top over here. And I'm going to need to copy everything that is over there. So I'm going to just literally copy and go all the way to the top. Now, the reason why I'm going all the way to the top, because that's usually where we will find things like your links for certain things. So I'm going to try and order this in such a way that I kind of know what's what, and it kind of makes sense and I can see where everything is. All right, so yeah, I'm now trying to make sure that everything is its own element. All right, now I want to paste, but I don't want to get rid of the style sheet because I'm still using it. And if I'm still using it, I kind of need it to work somewhere. So I'm going to look. All right, so this one says text CSS. I think that might be the main CSS. So what I'll do is that I'll go right above these ones over here and then paste these other ones that I've just copied, right? So link, this is relative icon, type, it's an image icon, and the image icon that I'm going to be using is from favicon.ico, and I'm also going to be using some fonts. I need some font awesome fonts so that some of these other features that are in here actually make sense, because if we go back to the site right now, you know, I don't see where some of these. You remember, if you remember in the last one, they were like little diamond shapes and things. They're not there at all. So that's what I'm going to be putting in over there. And I'm also going to be using Google Fonts for some of the things that I need Google Fonts for. And third-party plugin. So this is something else that I'm using. What is it? It's a Cloudflare plugin for Ajax, right? Which is something that helps websites work, and some of the animations and movements. That's what really that one does. So this one is going to be pop-up. So it means that the site is now going to pop in a nice and different way. So let's see if it actually does that. All right, so it is automatically saved, and F5 to refresh. Hey, Bob's your uncle. So now I've got these things over here, and that's pretty cool, right? And let's see. It's still not working like I wanted to, but for the most part, I'm able to kind of navigate my way around, and I've got some icons which are really cool, and it's kind of looking different to what it initially was, all right? And so, yeah, what more do I need to do to this thing to kind of give it a little bit of a kick? that is something that you would have to figure out for yourself. I unfortunately don't know how to make things look nice, and that is a problem that I have, but it's not a problem that you should encounter. In fact, while I'm at it, I'm just going to do a quick plug for some of the people who are out there doing amazing things. They are people who are running code camps, code boot camps, code academies, and they they literally are trying their best to kind of change the tech atmosphere in South Africa. So there is Intelligent Code out in the Western Cape in Kailicha, and there is the geek culture student societies. There's different chapters. Those guys are also doing some really amazing things. If you really want to learn how to code, you can go there. For some of you people who are like, I know me, I'm can't be studying with youngsters. There's Coding Mamas, um, run by Nelisa. She is doing amazing things. They literally are going to give you the tools. There is Girl Code as well. They literally run boot camps and they allow you to actually learn a little bit more about what makes code and what makes things in the IT space run, right? So that's pretty much it for app service. We kind of got the gist of how to kind of work it. I'm going to exit this one for now. And I just literally want to find out before I exit, are there any questions about what we've done with this first website? I know it does not look great, but it looks better than what it did initially, right? So we literally just did copy paste. I kind of showed you some tools as to how to figure out how to get images into your website, and you would literally have to sit down and go and look at images and keep on adding images, depending on your theme that you're working with as well, right? So now it is question time. Are there any questions? So far, so good. We've got this first one packed. Hopefully, there aren't any questions. If there are, reach out to any of the mentors. Reach out to me. Reach out to, in fact, any of the mentors. Reach out to your fellow learners because some of them are actually people in the industry that are looking to break into cloud and specifically Azure. So don't be afraid to ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Like people say this, and now I'm also saying it, but there is no such thing as a stupid question. Reach out if it is not something that you are, you know, naturally doing. It is going to be a little bit tricky. All right. So that's the first one down, and I'm going to keep this one alive. So Angular ASP is down. All right. Now we're now going to go into the next web app, which is we once again are going to go to app services. All right, let's go to view. And this time, let's create a Python one. So we're now going to create a Python website, right? And this one is where your IDE is going to become very important. Okay, so maybe app service editor. All right, so let's just go back to this last one. All right, so in your service editor, it will be under development tools. And this is for, and this is where it now gets tricky. It's for specifically if you're going to be working with ASP.NET and if you're also going to be working with just pure HTML, all right? You're about to see now why. Um, I think Botani, can I just ask which framework did you use? Which stack did you use? because if we're going to go into in fact, yeah, all right. So different stacks have different services that are available to them. You won't necessarily always get app service editor um, in across all of them, right? So maybe let's do this. Let's go to app services and I'll show you. In fact, let's just go and create one which is going to be in Node, which is always so much fun. All right, so we've already created the one service. I don't necessarily need to create another resource group. Let me just stick to one that I already have. So here we go. Let's do Andy node. All right. So there you go. Andy node is the next one. We're going to do Node.js. And we need to select a runtime stack. All right. Now, this is also very important that I actually explain what some of these small little things are that you see attached over there. All right. So we see Node 14 LTS. What the LTS means is long-term support. So that basically means they're going to support, and Microsoft is going to support this particular service for quite some time, which is great because it allows us to then say, all right, this is being supported for a long time. That basically means it won't be discontinued anytime soon. Even though there will be some upgrades and changes, I can kind of be okay that I'll create this website now. Yeah, in a few years' time, few months' time, I won't necessarily need to be, having to now learn a completely new, or having to recreate a completely new stack just for it, right? So it's got long-term support. So let's go with Node 14 LTS. And I want it in a Windows environment because, yeah, I just prefer that. Okay, so let's go to South Africa North. All right, that's the resource group that we've chosen. And hey, presto, we still have it on free, which is great. So let's just review and create because I kind of know how the rest of the other features are going to go. You can go in and actually check them out. So monitoring enabled. Ooh, okay. So maybe I do need to go in and actually go to monitoring. I don't need monitoring. Um, Deployment preview. Yeah, I don't need continuous deployment. Great. Yeah. Review and create. And we create. All right. So now it's going to go off and set up the environment, get everything in working order and prepare it so that I'm able to then actually do something on it. All right. So let's see if we're able to do some stuff on this node deployment that we're about to run. It does take a little bit of time, um, but once it is run, we'll be able to then hopefully make some changes. I suspect this is now where we're going to have to go in and play around with the IDE, but we're about to see. So let's go to the resource. All right, great. So I'm in the resource over here. I'll be able to see, the data in, data out, HTTP requests, server errors. Hopefully there should be none if we do things the correct way. And development tools. Oh, app service editor in preview. So I think it might not be so much with um, the deployment that you have. What I would suggest, but then take it down, delete, and reset it up that we have set it up right now. All right. So because surprisingly, I have got no app service editor, which is in preview. It could also be that you selected Linux, which, yeah, I don't think for Linux it has that particular feature yet. I think it might only be available in the Windows deployment. So maybe just look at that as well. But let's go, and once again, we're going to do some copy paste because we're literally trying to get as many websites out as quickly as possible, and see if we actually are able to do some stuff on it. So let's look see. All right, and we're back here in App Service Editor. Great. App Service Editor, I will be able to edit just the HTML. I haven't yet explored to see if I can edit anything else. At the moment, it looks like that's it. That's pretty much all I can actually make any changes on. So how about we copy paste again? But I think I'm going to try and copy paste from a different resource. So if you guys remember, I gave you some resources yesterday where you can actually get free, in fact, it was on 2 days ago, where you can then deploy some free websites, templates that you can then just throw in there. And the nice thing about those websites, they don't necessarily want you to, um, link back to them, but it is very important that you actually do link back to some of the websites if you're going to be doing something in a production environment. So let's get one that we've used. Okay, all right. So the one that we're going to use in this instance is going to be from Start Bootstrap. And shout out to the guys. Oh, in fact, let's use one from Free Website Templates, because I think I saw one that I really liked the other day. Okay, so yeah, all right. So I'm going to download this particular one. It's actually quite heavy, but nonetheless. So I'm literally trying to download this website template. And in fact, actually, let's use template mo extract to downloads. Cool. So there's Art Factory. I didn't get a chance to actually see who created Art Factory, but a shout out to you. You did a really cool little, I say little, but it's actually quite big. You created a really cool website that I am about to now use. Oh, I am not about to use it because I have not deployed it. So extract to downloads. Okay. Yes to all. Okay, so now let's try and find that particular one. There we go. Art Factory. All right. So I am now going to edit with Notepad++. Great. So I'm here and I'm like, okay, I want to use what you guys have over here. This is now also going to be a little bit tricky because this is referencing within a folder, not referencing from a URL like the last one. So maybe, as much as I wanted to use that, I want to necessarily reference time. Firstly, let's organize this here to kind of figure out what is what. All right, and I've got head, metadata, got more metadata, and I've got title, which is the thing that we edited the last time. There's the first link, and here is link 2, and another which is link 3, which is the main link for the style sheet, which I can't necessarily get rid of, because I get rid of that, it starts to look funky again. So there we go, and I am going to go to body, because body needs to be there, and I also want head to be there, its own closing tag. All right, so let's copy paste and edit everything else. Oh, in fact, firstly, before we do that, go to the bottom. I want to change and make sure that all the scripts have their own line, because I can then kind of read and understand exactly what's happening with this code over here. All right, cool. So I want to change here at the top where I have got these links. So I'm going to throw in the links again like I did the last time. And I'm also going to change the name or the title of the page to Andy Challenge Node. All right, so there we go. So it is the Node website. I need to remember that one. I've already added my links for some of the style sheets that I'll be using. So Google API's fonts, Font Awesome for the icons, and I've also added this one for favicon for the top icon, so that if you look, in fact, let's go back here to the overview. This site would look like the last one that we had. So we kind of need to make some changes on the fly, but that icon that you see, if you look at the moment, it's going to be using the Microsoft icon. And it's a really cool icon, but this is not a Microsoft website. So essentially, I want to change that. And that's why in here we have this icon over here. So I then need to get rid of this other icon. So great, I enjoyed the icon, thank you, but if I'm doing something for a brand, I kind of think they would like their brand icon to be there at the top. So that's the one that we're going to be using over there. In this instance, it's the favicon icon. So that's the one that's going to be at the very top. And if we look at the website and F5, there you go. Okay, so it has nothing at the moment, but essentially that's where you would then make that change, all right? So let's go to this particular one over here that we're making some changes in. We kind of included the links at the top, which allow us to do some styling, right? So let's now go to edit and copy and paste some more. And we're going to go from body to body. How about we go from body to body? Uh, and this is not the song, but yeah, it was a nice coincidence. So body to body. All right, and there we go. Let's see my website. Oh, did I close the website? I did. Sorry about that. Okay, browse. Let's open up the website, and hey, there we go. It's looking like the last one with all of the little nooks and crannies and all the nice things that have been added automatically, right? But of course, we don't have the images. And once again, for images, we're going to go back to free stock images. Let's do this one. Copy image link. All right, and I'm going to go back to this editor, and if you remember, I said we look for the tag that says img. Where are you? Okay, here's the first img. Okay, so we changed that one. In fact, let's also change this one, img source, where we're getting our image from. There we go. Still dirty, so it's saved. So I think what we should see is two images. Exactly the same, but two images nonetheless. All right. And now I want to change some of the text that is on here. All right. So I think I need to change some of this text. Start Bootstrap. The guys that are creating this template that we're using. Yeah, let's change it to Andy. And if you look, right, so, and what I like about what they do at Start Bootstrap, they tell you exactly what it is that you're going to be working in. So over here, this is the navigation, and the navigation is, close that, open the running one. The navigation is this here at the top, right? This little section at the top, that's what the navigation is. So I kind of want to make sure that I get that to work, right? So maybe let's just actually go navigation, and we're going to make it Andy node about services, portfolio, and contact. We're going to keep those, or maybe let's just, so that you actually see. Now, this little thing at the beginning, the li, is a link, right? It's a link tag. It basically means that something, oh, it's actually a list tag. And this list over here is for a link, right? And it's for the services link, allowing me to kind of know exactly where it is, right? And I want to change this one maybe to stuff, right? Dirty, and it's saved. All right, and we go back to the website, and F5, there you go, Andy node, and stuff. So I kind of know where I need to be changing that. But I also want to make some changes to some of this text over here. At your service, we've got what you need. I kind of need to make those changes as well. So best thing to do, look for something that you saw on the website itself. So be like, all right, Start Bootstrap can help you build better websites using the Bootstrap framework. So let me try and find, there we go. Start Bootstrap can help you build better websites. Now, this is also where you then start to figure out, okay, this is over here, P, that is usually for text, all right? Yeah, so that's the tag that we use for text that is going to display on the website. I want to make sure that I change just this one to, this is my website that I am creating using Start Bootstrap templates. All right, and it has saved that. Cool. So let's go back and F5. Hey, there we go. So this is my website that I'm creating, using Start Bootstrap templates. Great. So I kind of know where that is, and if I was able to change something that is in a P class using changing the black text, then it kind of means that if I want to change other things within a website, I that is just text, I need to look for P class. Specifically for this template that we're using, P class kind of means that the stuff that I'll be seeing is going to be able to be changed just by changing the black text. And this is also if I'm using text editor um, for app service. All right, so Start Bootstrap has everything you need to get your new website up and running in no time. And that is not a lie. I have just created. All right, there we go. And I've changed this one over here. That's in the blue text. But now how do I know where I'm changing what? It kind of helps to kind of know where I'm changing some of these things. So essentially, this template is really cool because it's got what we call commenting. All right. Now, when you've got commenting, that basically means the developer or the UX designer is telling you what this particular section of code means, what you're going to be working with over here. So this is a section class. I know that it's a section because it ultimately says section, but it's also a section because it is a portion of the page that I would be using, right? And page section BG primary, all right? BG primary, BG in Bootstrap is background, so primary, so that will be the primary color. And the ID, how you can identify it is that it is the about section, as they also commented it over there. So the ID is the about section. If you don't have this, you kind of already know that if you are dealing with a website that has got sections, you want to know where you're changing stuff, look for your tags, section, header, div, which I'll explain in a moment. And the class is just where you're kind of declaring where you could find that feature, right? So class is where it's the grouping, and in Bootstrap you have different classes, and in this one, this is this page section, but this is in the style sheet, not so much in this particular one. But okay, so and the ID is about, so yeah, kind of figure my way around, and a div. So divs are where we split certain things up in a website. Say, okay, so everything has its place. A div, think of it as like a room in a house. A div is basically saying this is the dividing wall, and this division has the class name container. And if you are looking at the style sheet, which I think maybe we will get a chance to look at, I will then be able to then make some changes on that. All right, so that's what that particular thing means. And div class row justify content center. So in this particular container, I am now saying I want it to be in a row, and for this row to have this kind of alignment. It must justify the content to the center. Kind of seems like you're actually reading English, but essentially, this person kind of made it pretty easy to kind of know exactly what it is that they want to happen. And within this row, and rows are going across, column is going down, in this row, I am going to have a column which is large, and it is in position number 8. So the way that Bootstrap works is that it takes a website and cuts it into a grid, right? and the grid goes up to 12. So you literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This one is going to be in over here, and yeah, over here somewhere, where 8 is, and I want it to be large. So the text is going to, the column itself might just be large, or it might just be that the text inside it is large, but this is how I've named this particular one. And what I want to happen inside it is that I want the text to be centered. Great. H2. What does H2 mean? So H2 is just like P, it's another tag, but this one is for the kind of header that I'll be using. Right? You would specify this in your CSS, and for this one, H2 has the class text white. So I know that in H2, the text will be white. MT will be 0. If I remember correctly, I think it's median text, could be. Just need to clarify that one though, be sure. But this is the text that I'll be editing over here. We've got what you need. Really now. So it's saved, right? But now I want to see. We've got what you need. Ah, okay. So it's already white and it's bigger than this one. So it definitely is a header. And I kind of know that it is, center aligned, sort of, because it's in the middle of the page. All right. So it's over here in this column over here. If I were to refresh, I should be able to see really now. And guess what? Because it is center aligned, it is just going to move the text that way. Well, it's just going to align it so that the text is primarily in the middle, right? So that's how you can kind of know some of the other things that you're making changes to in your website, right? And so I've kind of got the hang of, all right, H2, HR, huh? So usually with your HR tags, I think I could be wrong, but I think your HR tag is where you are um, splitting or dividing something, especially for a header. I know BR is when you're doing a break for, but yeah, I could be wrong, but I think this is where you are then uh, making that one. I just need to look at the CSS to be absolutely sure. But this is another tag. I don't quite know what it does. So maybe let me not mess around with that one for now. But I do know what the P tag does. So this is the one that I changed early on. And I'm like, okay, cool, great. So I kind of know what these two do. And then now I get to an A. What on earth would an A mean? This is now a new tag. So an A is usually when we are going to be linking to something, right? It is an action and it's linking the action to something. What could be the action? Is there something that could maybe have an action? And in this instance, there is. The action is a button, and the button is the get started button, right? So, okay, so I know that this is an action class and it is btn button, btn light. So I kind of know it's light button because if I look at it over here, btn light, it's yeah, it's pretty bright. It's not dark. I'm sure if we were to maybe do something like this, it might not work, but yeah, let's see. Saved. I want to see if it actually does change. Oh no, don't have the button. But that's also because there is no green, and also because I don't know what the thing is. let me see. I think if I were to change it to, let's see, alert, could be wrong. And F5 refresh. That okay, didn't do anything. So yeah, you would literally need to look at the CSS, which is the style sheet, which kind of holds all of the different properties to kind of have a good idea as to what you can change certain things to. But okay, BTN light, button extra large, okay. All right, so it's not small. JS scroll trigger. So what this one is saying is that there is some JavaScript that is attached to it, and what it will do is that it will scroll a trigger, or it will give an action to that. What that action could be is F5, it changes color. So if I scroll over it, it changes color, and the moment I'm off, it's gone back to being a light button again. So that's what that particular one means over there. So, okay, I kind of know get services. And href is going to, href really just means taking me to. So let's maybe change this just so you actually get to see what href does to www.azure.com. Ooh, azure.com, right? Cool. So it's saved. At the moment, it takes you down to the services. But let's F5 and we go to get started. Hey, there you go. The resource you're looking for has been removed and its name changed or is temporarily available. So I kind of already know that if I want to do something um, and I want, you know, an action to happen, I need to look for the href. That's where you're sending someone off to, all right? But in this instance, it's hashtag services. So that basically means it's going to take me to where services is. And the services icon is, well, the services section is over here. So that's where it would take me if I were to then use something like that. So that's almost where I can kind of figure out where certain things go to and what certain things do. So that is just a rough outline as to what the different tags mean. And when you start breaking stuff, you will kind of have a reference point for, oh, this is what that meant. This is what this does. All right. So let's see. I think I've kind of covered how to do a node. So find a template and start editing it and have fun with how it looks and how it works. If you can, what would work best is if you were to reference directly to the style sheet um, as opposed to downloading the style sheet. Um, you can download the style sheet so that you don't have to, because we are going to delete these resources, right? And it's very important that we actually learn how to delete the resources. In fact, now that we are done with all of these resources, I now actually want to go to getting to, cleaning up. At the end of the tutorials, there's usually a cleanup, and the cleanup is get rid of the resources that you started. But before I do, I need to find out any questions in terms of what we have covered for Node. Patani, I see that you're saying it's sorted now. I think that means that you went to the Windows deployment, right? Okay, cool. So hopefully there shouldn't be any problems. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to now stop all of these resources. All right, so are you sure you want to stop Andy node? Yes. All right, and it's going to take a little bit of time to power down. And if we were to go to Andy node now, hey, there we go. This web app is stopped. All right, so that basically means that web app does not exist anymore. But I keep on saying delete because luckily for us, we're still using our free services. So it means that if you set it up correctly and you used the free, you won't incur any charges. And also, be aware you've got a maximum of 10 that you can use for free. After that, you would then start to pay. And there's certain charges that are attached to what you'd be paying for. All right. So just be aware of that. It's very, very important. I know it sounds like I'm being, um, yeah, but it's very important that you are aware that you need to delete your resources. And the best way to do it is while you're in the resource itself, delete. And then you'll say type the app name because they want to make sure that this is not a mistake. You didn't just press delete. Um, Trust me, it will not allow you to delete without entering in the app name. And this app name is Andy Node, right? And what the delete does is that it deletes this particular resource that you've activated. It doesn't delete the resource group because the resource group is still active for another app. And it's kind of cool if you can then group your resources in such a way that you will be able to then use them whenever you want to use them, right? So that's how you would then do that one. Okay. So I just want to make sure that it's been deleted. And the best way to do it, delete operation successfully deleted. So if I were to go to home and I were to go to app service, I should only see Andy ASP, which is the correct thing, right? But if I also want to delete this one as well, I can do it just from app services. Be like, okay, bye bye. And in this instance, do you want to delete all the selected resources? Yes. And it is then going to go off and get rid of that resource. And Bob's your uncle, it is gone. It is finished. It's bye bye. All right. So we've just done ASP, we've done Node, but we've only done the HTML section of it. So technically, we've also covered HTML. Let's attack Python. And this is, you guys, it's gonna be fun. So Python requires you. I didn't see, yeah, Python, especially the framework. It is going to require you to also select the framework, I think, but I just want to be absolutely certain. All right. So resource group is mentor channels because we can't spell today. And what's the app name? This one is going to be Andy Python. And it then is going to be, I want it to deploy using code, select runtime stack, Python. Okay, let's go Python 3.7. And it automatically defaults to Linux. It doesn't seem like there is a deployment for, um, oh, there is a deployment for Windows. Hey, what do you know? So if you select Python 3.6, you can then deploy to Windows, which also makes sense because on Visual Studio, you would then get support for up to 3.6. I don't know. I think I've seen 3.9 in my Conda environment, but I could be wrong. All right, so there we go. Python 3.6, I can then deploy using Windows. which also means that I will be able to then get the all important app service editor. So let's see if we can find South Africa. Oh no, South Africa. Oh, South Africa North. Hey, what do you know? And it's still available on free F1 because I've got Windows. Yay! All right. So once again, we're going to go to the deployment preview, continuous deployment. No, we're going to go to monitoring, and once again, I don't want any application insights. Uh, yep. So it's already telling me that um, codeless monitoring. I need to go back and just check something. Tags. No. Okay, there we go. So I was just a little bit uncertain. It was giving me something that I wasn't too familiar with. All right, review and create. So we're using the free tier, 1 gig memory, shared infrastructure, and deployment preview not enabled, monitoring not enabled. Great. Let's create. So now we're going to create this thing, and we're creating it just here in Gauteng. So that means it's not going to be far in terms of my resource grouping. Now, best practice when you're going to be using certain things, look at where your resource groups are. Uh, Often you'll hear people say, group your resources in the same region. So if your website is in South Africa North, don't now put the website, the database in East US 2 or East US, because then it's not best practice, and plus there will then be a delay in terms of. But now you also need to be aware not all services are yet provisioned for South Africa. So for instance, if you want to use a chatbot, the Louis service is not yet provisioned. Last time I checked, is not yet provisioned for South Africa, so you would need to then provision your chatbot in a different region. So, those are some of the things that you'll work around as time goes. But best practice, try and group your resources in the same region. And then if you do want a backup, it would be in a different region as well, because South Africa is prone to load shedding. Usually, most of the data centers have generators, but you know, you don't want to take chances. Okay, so let's see. Browse. So we're now going to go to the website that we've just deployed, which is the Python one. But once again, it is going to literally be the HTML that we're going to edit for this one. Hey, this website is running Python 3.66. There's nothing here yet, but Microsoft Azure makes it simple to publish content with Git, FTP, or your favorite development tools such as Visual Studio Online. Huh. Or Web Matrix. We'll try Visual Studio Online in a moment. Okay, so there we go. Let me go back to my resource and let's see in development tools, app service editor. Woohoo! Once again, we're going to go into the preview because this particular challenge is just about getting a website. It's not about the back end stuff yet. We're going to get to the back end stuff when we start doing things that require back end. All right. And for those ones, we're going to go into using your code editors like Visual Studio Online, or also Visual Studio Code, which you would then download, or full version Visual Studio, which if you have it, great. But, oh, this is really nice. So, hosting start HTML, all right? And because Python is the way that it is, there is hosting start Python, which kind of lets you know where everything is, which is everywhere, and there's lines upon lines upon lines of code that you're like, what is this? If Python is your preferred language, you will kind of already know where you want to be running around for this for. Just want to be sure, what is this never-ending line stream of code about? Ah, data image. Okay, so wow. So how about we just change this background image? Uh, and yeah, we're going to change this background image in Python HTML. And then there's also something called Python .py, right? Hosting start Python .py, which is basically where you would then go and define the environment that you're working in. So def application environment start response. Start response is 200 OK. That means if it is OK, it will then start and it will run. And the content type is text HTML with open hosting start Python HTML R. So that is the file that you're going to be using. So you're importing that file. And hosting start Python HTML is this one over here. So we're reading this file in as hosting start file, and then hosting start file read, great, yield hosting encode UTF-8. That's just encoding for text, and then replace Python version platform version code encode UTF-8. All right, so this is kind of a little bit confusing, but essentially all that I'm saying over here is I want when somebody comes to the site, it needs to run this file, which is in this environment, and I want you to replace this code with UTF-8 encoding. Anything that is funny, that has got funny text, please just sort it out, right? And then I come here to hosting.html. There's a web config file, which is great, letting me know what kind of environment it is. That's usually what your web config file has. So it is a Python path. So this is how I would then get to Python in this environment. Add key Wasigi handler. This is for most Python web applications. You will have Wasigi. And you will then know that, okay, hosting start Python application, this is the actual script that you must run. This is how you will then configure this particular thing. We're not going to go into that. What we're going to go into is, once again, the front end, all right? So let's kind of make sense of this once again. All right, and I'm going to go back to my metadata, put that on a separate line so that I kind of know. Put that on a separate line. Title, put that on a separate line. And link, put that on a separate line so I know that's the link. Shortcut icon, all right, link, link, link. Great. Script, I want you on a separate line. And this script over here, yeah, I want you on a separate line. Kind of starting to make sense, kind of figure out where what is head. Okay, that's the closing tag. Oh, forgot to mention, guys. So usually with most programming languages, there is an opening tag and a closing tag. There is no language that is as finicky about that as Python, and also, in fact, all of them. If you don't have a closing tag, but you've already started something, it is like a what happens. I'll show you now what happens if you don't close a tag. Yeah, wow. All right, so over here, okay, I need to know that that's a div, and this one is for the image, and this is another div. Okay, so let me do this div. If you remember, I said the div is the room, so I know that this div is for the nav bar. The navigation bar is that thing at the top, and over here there is no navigation bar that you can see because the site does not have navigation yet. We're gonna literally add that as we go. Okay, so that's my image, and the width is 270, height 108. Okay, so I kind of know where that one is, but this one is the closing tag for that one. And then this is another room. Oh, and this is another nav. Oh, this is closing the nav, so this one needs to go back, and then this one needs to go back. So I now know that this one and this one is a pair, this one, that one is a pair, this one, that one is a pair. Great. And div, all right, another div, and that div over there, and then this div, because this one and that one is a pair, so they kind of closed off. And then this one, if I hit enter, yep, it's gonna go forward a little bit. Here's another div. Okay, so now we're inside where hopefully we should be getting to where the actual editable text is. Okay, so this div needs to close that one, and then this one needs to close that one, and then this one is going to be a new one. All right, and this one, okay, that's another div. That's another div over there, and this is an H2. So, oh, hey, app service developers, let's change this one. All right, so I now want to change this to something. Let's see, a Python site. Okay, so it's saved, and once again, as I said, we're literally changing the HTML, but you're about to see something really cool about Python, where if you think you've changed, you haven't changed nothing because it is running this from somewhere else. So I've just changed. This is a Python site. It's saved. I just refreshed. In fact, let me just show you. I'll do a physical refresh. The website is running. Hasn't changed anything. So where should I actually be making these changes? It is in here in python.html that I need to make the changes, because if you remember over here, the file that I'm reading is not hostings.html. The file that I'm reading is Python HTML. So the changes I need to make are in Python HTML. And of course, I would have to navigate past all of this text. Hey, okay, there we go. Now let's see. This is my Python site. Okay, dirty and saved. All right. And now if I hit F5, hey, there we go. We've managed to change this one over here, right? So if I really wanted to, would it be possible to actually change it from using hosting.python HTML to hosting.html? Yes, it will be possible if I was to just change it in here. So I want you to not read hosting.html as the file. I want you to read that other one, saved. In fact, let's also then with HTML changes. Okay, so it has saved. and let's see. So this one is saying this is my Python site. This other one should be saying this is a Python site with HTML changes. So we've now changed which site it is actually running with, which is really cool. So that is how you can then play around with that. All right. So we've managed to create 4 sites in 2 hours. Hey, this is quite impressive. All right. Now, before we wrap up, because once again, the features that are in this one are the same features that are in the other one. So it's completely up to you how you want to change it and update your site. I need to know if there are any questions at all about what we have covered today before I then shut down the resources. Okay, so it seems like there's no questions, which is great. Allow me to close this resource over here. So we're going to go back to the very top, overview, and from the overview, we're going to delete. Okay, if we press delete. All right, and this one, we remember was Andy Python, and delete app service plan. Go right ahead and delete it. We'll recreate another one, or just use the one that we have. All right, deleting Andy Python, and before we actually exit and start assuming that it's done, delete operation successfully completed. Let's go to Andy Python, and we are going to hit F5. Can't read this page because it doesn't exist any longer. All right, so that is that. If you followed along, you would have been able to then create either one, at least one of the 4 websites that are required for. Oh, yeah, Visual Studio Online is currently not available. That's okay. All right, so you should have at least created one out of the 4 websites that are required. And you should also know roughly how to edit some of the things. Please don't be afraid. Use the resources that I made available in terms of selecting the websites. Use the templates. Please don't remove the backlinks for those that say you need to have backlinks. There are some designers who are spending hours and hours and hours and hours a really nice website. So it'd be great if you would just keep those ones over there. But over and all, over and above that, I think we managed to achieve our target. And I hope that by 9 o'clock tonight, we'll be able to have some pretty decent websites. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for your time once again. And I hope that it was helpful. We are going to go into app services quite a lot over the coming weeks, but we're also going to be building on top of something that we've already created. As I said, you don't need to delete your service if your service is the free service. Please also make sure that you select the free service. And that is usually at the beginning for those who will be watching on YouTube later. But we covered it at the beginning, how to select the free service, select it, and then you can then just keep on having that particular service active. All right. Till the next time, everyone, have a wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning, whenever you're watching this. And I wish you good luck for your challenges. Don't forget, cutoff time is 9 o'clock. So if you can, just do copy paste. Like literally just do copy paste. We're okay with that because we're still going to build on it. All right. Till the next time, cheers.